The Boston Bruins have won 4 games in a row. They're at the 15-game mark, and last year at this time they were 7-7-1. We all know what happened last year. After 5 more games, they fired their head coach. They're above 500, but they're just scratching at the surface. Are they the real deal? It's at that 15-game mark, so I'm going to break down the roster and go into all of that. But I also want to talk about Mason Lohrei. He hasn't played in a bunch of games now, and it might be obvious to some that they kind of look better without him in the lineup. Do they miss his offensive skill? I'm going to jump into everything, as I think it's something I need to talk about, especially because maybe they should move him. I'm going to talk about all that in the video today in the latest episode from Bruins Diehards. And as always, please leave me a like and subscribe. Let's get into it. Mason Lohrei. So much potential on the Bruins back end. I remember when they brought him into the playoffs, he looked amazing. We were all raving about him, his jumping into the play skill. But that might be because, is he better a forward? And what can the Bruins do with him? So I want to do a little background into Mason Lohrei and just give some more perspective on this kid. He's from Baton Rouge to Boston. Lohrei emerged as one of the most intriguing young defensemen in the Boston Bruins system. At 6'5" and with a potent offensive skill set, he offers the kind of puck-moving, playmaking ability that the Boston Bruins desperately need on the back end. But for some reason in this new system, it just doesn't work. But his journey hasn't been linear. He's still learning the defensive side of the game, and his value to the team and maybe on the trade market is very much a work in progress. I'm going to go through everything and deep dive into the numbers, his history, including switching from forward to defense, how he fits into Boston's depth chart, what his advanced analytics tell us about his real value, and whether the Bruins should keep him or move him, and what might return they get for him. But we're going to start with his background. Mason Lohrei was a forward until the age of 16. And for him at this age, that's not a long time. When circumstances at Culver Military Academy required him to become a defenseman. That conversion is key to understanding his strengths today. He still has the instincts of a forward, his puck skills, his decision-making with the puck, and his ability to join the rush. And honestly, that's what we fell in love with this guy in the playoffs, when he kept jumping into the rush and scoring huge goals in the playoffs. But he lacks the decades of defensive experience many of his peers have. At Ohio State, his coaches noted he was scratching the surface of his potential as a defender. That is an important narrative. He is physically ready for the NHL, but his fine-tuning of his defensive reads it's still underway. He looks lost out there. We always talk about how goaltenders take a while to develop and get better into the NHL level. I almost want to throw Mason Lohrei into that section because he is learning every year. He's actually better than he was last year defensively, but it's still in this system and the way the Bruins are playing, he easily became the whipping boy for Marco Sturm. Marco Sturm said to the reporters, I hope he's mad. I hope he's mad. And this was after sitting him for 2 games. He's continued to sit him out of the lineup. And I think a lot of that has to do with, hey, they're winning. You don't want to shake it up. But at the same time, when is enough is enough. He can't be any more mad than he already is. He's practicing hard. At some point, Sturm's either going to have to put him into the game or the Bruins are going to have to move on from this kid because you can't put him on waivers. In 2024-25, Lohrei appeared in 77 games for the Bruins and posted 5 goals and 28 assists for 33 points. On the power play, he was especially effective. He finished with 16 power play points, which placed him among the top defensemen on his team in that category. The Bruins signed him to a 2-year extension in June 2025 with an AAV of approximately $3.2 million, which shows they believe in his potential while still giving him flexibility and, earning his next deal. If the Bruins really believed in him, though, they would have gave him a long-term deal. On the roster picture, Lohrei is slotted behind veteran left-shot defenseman Hampus Lindholm, but ahead of many veteran depth options, giving him a chance to be a regular top 4 if he improves his defensive game. But the advanced analytics tell us a little bit more about Mason Lohrei. When Lohrei is on the ice, the Bruins generate a healthy number of quality scoring chances. His goals for 60 is above average for a young defenseman, which speaks to his ability to drive offense. But his goals against 460 remains elevated compared to more established defensively responsible defensemen. That suggests that while his offense is ahead of his defensive game, he's still catching up on suppressing opponents' chances. He pretty much lets people walk in, and he has a hard time taking the man on the outside. He also having more of a hard time with any other player on this team when they do a switch off, when they do the man-to-man coverage. The Bruins have been absolutely atrocious in their own end with switching off in Sturm's system. I'll get more into that when talking about Swayman and his underlining numbers, and even Korpisalo's. It's like the Bruins are bullfighters, and they're just pulling up and letting everybody walk through the middle this year. Don't know what that's about. Lohrei's raw counting stats in the dirty work areas are encouraging. He blocked over 100 shots last season, showing his willingness to engage physically and help defensively. But his possession share, his Corsi or Fenwick, at 5-on-5 has been closer to league average for a young defenseman. Not elite yet. Not even close. That tells us this: he can drive offense and do visible stuff, but his underlying possession impact is still catching up, meaning he's not really tilting the ice in the Boston's favor defensively. It's not a shock to anybody watching this video. But I want to look into his fit. Understanding Lohrei's fit means understanding Boston's need. On the left side of the defense corp, the Bruins have veteran structure, but they lack a young puck mover. With his size and skill set, Lohrei fills the modern left shot puck mover role. The key questions are, will he stabilize his defensive game enough to be a top 4 regular? And will he stay at the current bridge cost of $3.2 million or demand more soon? Because if he takes a step forward, he could be a long-term fixture. If he doesn't, he risks being a trade piece or a depth option. And honestly, if he takes a step forward, fans are going to be pissed because offensive numbers get you that big deal. You look at Lane Hudson over in Montreal. He's not that great defensively, but offensively he is amazing. So everybody loves him. If Lohrei pretty much like ticked his offensive numbers up just a smidge and was more in the top 5 on the team, no one would bat an eye at this kid. This is just facts. If the Boston Bruins decide to explore moving Lohrei, what kind of value should they expect? Let's set a realistic shelf. He's 24 years old, left shot with offensive upside. That makes him attractive, but because his defensive game is still developing, he isn't the elite young top pair defender tier, which means the market return will be a mid-tier player, a responsible expectation, a young NHL-ready, near NHL-ready prospect, plus a second or a third round pick. Nothing is going to blow the socks off anybody here if Mason Lohrei gets picked and traded. And in fact, if he does get traded, 9 times out of 10, the Bruins probably will get burned on this deal. Say Boston settles for a second or a quick third. That might reflect a quick flip because they're debating whether to put him on waivers. Because if they send him to the AHL and they have to put him on waivers, he's 100% getting claimed. It's not a little bit. It's a 100% getting claimed. And then they lose an asset such as himself for nothing. I know some people will be in the comments like, Lohrei sucks and this and that. No one in the NHL sucks. They could stink. They could have a bad game. But they don't suck. They're better than all of us who's watching this video. Just is what it is. On the keep side, if you believe Lohrei is going to improve defensively at his cost and age, he represents a strong upside. My recommendation, unless a team offers a top prospect plus a second round pick, the Bruins are probably better off holding him, coaching the defensive side and reaping the upside. And maybe that's what Sturm has been doing. I'm not at practice. I can only, take from what everybody in the media talks about, which they don't talk about Lohrei much at practice. But I would think the team, the coaching staff, everybody is going through it with Lohrei over the videos after each practice. And I would hope, I truly, truly hope, they're at least telling him what he needs to do to get back in this lineup. If they're not doing that, honestly, that's on the coaching staff and the front office, and it makes me disappointed. It wouldn't surprise me if some of the things I've heard from NHL teams, and I'm not saying the Boston Bruins, but some of the things I've heard from NHL teams, if they're not doing that, what are we even doing here at this point? Because you're not even sending a message. You're just looking like an ass. In conclusion, Mason Lohrei is a fascinating asset for the Boston Bruins. He brings size, puck skill, power play capability, and youthful upside. But he also brings risk, primarily in his defensive game. Boston has given him a bridge deal that implies, we believe in you, but you still have to earn a long-term deal. The smart path for the Bruins is likely to keep him, continue to refine his game, and let the upside play out. Unless a trade offer presents itself that is good and you can't decline it. If that happens, the return should be a mid-tier but useful player. And in short, he's worth keeping and he's honestly worth betting on because the reward might be far greater than the risk at this point. But I want to hear from you. I've kind of laid it all out, and I think nothing should come as a surprise as people. I think we all agree Lohrei's offensive capabilities is fantastic, but his defensive lapse are just too much to look away. They got worse and worse as the games progressed. We're actually seeing with a bunch of defenders on the Bruins right now, but they're not as bad as Mason Lohrei. Their two-way game is just way too important to take them out of the lineup. And I want to start pointing fingers. I'm going to go through all the players on the roster later on in the video, but I want to hear from you about Mason Lohrei. And instead of just dropping into the comments and saying he sucks, which I'm sure there's still going to happen, just give me your thoughts on what maybe the Bruins can do to improve his game. I think that's a lot more constructive than constantly saying things like the kid sucks, because, again, I've told you this before. He doesn't suck. He can stink from game to game, but he doesn't suck. But I want to hear from you. Next, I want to talk about the Boston Bruins and the fact that we're at the 15-game mark. Now, the reason why I always say the 15-game mark is very important, because most teams at the 15-game mark, if they're not in a playoff spot or at least 4 points towards making the playoffs, they don't end up making the playoffs. I believe it's like under 10% of teams at this point, or like 12%. I can't remember. It's a percentage point, and I've heard it before, that these teams don't make the playoffs. The Bruins have almost an identical record to last year. They were 7-7-1 at this time, and I said that before at the beginning of the video, and that ended up getting a coach fired. I don't know if Sturm's down the path of being fired. I think if the Bruins continue at this pace, and I know they've won 4 in a row, but I just don't want to get ahead of myself. We could still be seeing some issues. In fact, with the Bruins playing the way they are, I think the 20-game mark will almost tell us what's going to happen this year. I still look at the second line playing well in the past couple games, in these winning games, is a good thing, but I still look at them as like, hey, every time Viktor Arvidsson scores, I'm like, his trade value is going up. And I appreciate that, Viktor Arvidsson. But I feel, and I've always done this every year when I look at the NHL and the Boston Bruins, the 15-game mark is a very good barometer of the season. So let's get into the depth of the Boston Bruins roster at the 15-game mark. So right now, the Boston Bruins a third in the Atlantic. But I don't want us to get ahead of ourselves, because if we go by winning percentage, which the Boston Bruins are above 500 at .533, they're second to last in the Atlantic, actually, and the Florida Panthers are last in the Atlantic. They've only played 13 games, but they are literally 500, the Florida Panthers. The Bruins do not have a better winning percentage than the Buffalo Sabres, the Ottawa Senators, who look not so great because their goaltending, that guy Linus Ullmark that we used to have, is having one of his worst seasons he's had in the NHL, and the Ottawa Senators just can't seem to play well. They're really missing Brady Tkachuk. And then you have the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Detroit Red Wings, and then what looks like a juggernaut right now, the Montreal Canadiens. Now, we've been saying for years that Montreal and Detroit are going to be the next team, but they did a rebuild. Montreal got lucky. I've said this before. They lost their starting goalie, and they had no other choice. The Detroit Red Wings, they lost Datsuk and Zetterberg, and they decided to toss it all in. The Toronto Maple Leafs being in third and that .577 winning record, I think they're where the Boston Bruins were 3 or 4 years ago, and they're trending in the wrong direction. The Tampa Bay Lightning are trending in the wrong direction. The Florida Panthers they're just riddled with injuries. There's no other explanation around what's going on with the Florida Panthers. But the Boston Bruins, they're just hovering, and it's not to be a bad thing. They're 49 goals for, 51 goals against. They've only got a -2 differential. And I'm going to get more into it later on in the video, but goaltending isn't the Bruins' issue. Actually, the underlying stats say a totally different thing. Where do I think the Boston Bruins, if I'm only going off 15 games? And it's fair to say going off 15 games, because if you look at it, that's kind of, like I said, the barometer of when teams are going to make the playoffs. I still think the Bruins, if they will make the playoffs, they need to make a continued push. They need to pretty much win their next 5 games and move that winning percentage up, because a .533 winning percentage just isn't going to cut it. The fact that Khusnutdinov is our first-line center and he's playing well, it should say a lot. Missing Elias Lindholm, I think will hurt. And in fact, maybe Khusnutdinov gets second-line minutes when Lindholm gets back. I don't know what they're going to do when Lindholm gets back. He's only week to week. But there's a lot going on with this Boston Bruins team. So let's start with the forward group. So right now, Pastrňák, as always, leading the team in scoring. Shocker, I know. Who could have seen it coming? But Pastrňák in 15 games, 7 goals, 11 assists, 18 points. I think Pastrňák has looked great out there. His job is to be offensive. It's not to be a two-way player. If you want him to be that, I don't know what to tell you at this point. That's not his job. He's an elite player in the NHL, and he drives play, and when he's on the ice, he makes it dangerous for the other team, and he helps out others around him. Morgan Geekie every day probably thanks David Pastrňák for even playing. I really think that Pastrňák has elevated Geekie's game. Sturm has actually moved Geekie up and down the lineup because he's trying to generate more offense, but I think he's going to stay away from that second line because they seem to be playing well. Next on that list, Pavel Zacha. I think Zacha has played above what I expected him. I expected Zacha to actually take a step back this year, only because I expected the Boston Bruins to take a step back. In 15 games, he's got 3 goals, 10 assists, and 13 points. His goal the other night against the Islanders, it was phenomenal. He didn't miss the empty net. Zacha has an issue with that sometimes. I don't know what it is. Whenever the goalie's out of the net as much as Sorokin was the other night against the Islanders, he seems to hit the post a lot. But I think Zacha is a very smart hockey player. He helps his line, and I think he's more comfortable at the center position than he is on the wing. He just seems to be playing better there, and he's elevating his game. He's been very good on the faceoffs. He's been very good on the power play. The Boston Bruins power play, I think, has looked good. I truly do. I have zero issues with the Boston Bruins power play. They're 22% right now, 13th in the NHL, and I think Zacha has a lot to do with that. I think he's been great on the power play. He could have probably had maybe 3 goals against the Islanders. I think if Zacha trusts his shot more, he's going to score more goals. But the rumors are going to persist all year around Pavel Zacha. There's rumors Montreal. We still hear the persistent one about Vancouver. I think the rumors around trading a guy like Pavel Zacha will not go away, but I do believe if the Bruins ever decide, and I don't think they want to, there are rumors that they're thinking about re-signing him, and I think those are true. If the Bruins are somewhere possibly making a playoff spot, they'll probably keep Zacha around. But if they're out of a playoff spot at the trade deadline, Zacha's going to command a haul for the Boston Bruins. And honestly, trading Haula for him, anything for Pavel Zacha is a huge win, but I think they would get more than they got for Charlie Coyle for Pavel Zacha. I think any team would look at him as a huge upgrade on their second line, and you're going to have a lot of teams interested in Pavel Zacha, and the Bruins are going to have a lot of suitors. So that is not going to go away, and I think the intensity around it is just going to get louder and louder and louder, regardless of how the Bruins are playing. And then we look at Morgan Geekie. He's in 15 games. He's got 9 goals, 3 assists, and 12 points. He needs to shoot more. I think that... I can't believe I'm saying it, but he needs to shoot more. David Pastrňák said the other day that he has the most underrated shot on the Boston Bruins, and I think Geekie needs to shoot more. Pastrňák seems to feel that Geekie can be a 50-goal scorer in the NHL. He's on pace for that right now, but at the same time, he's probably looking more at 30 to possibly 35 to 40 goals in that range this year. But as of late, he's been in the doghouse. His giveaway the other night against the Islanders was atrocious, but again, players are going to do that from time to time. Pastrňák makes giveaways. Everybody makes giveaways. It's just the game of hockey. It is such a fast pace, but it looks so easy from us watching the game that we're like, oh, God, I can't believe he did that. But at the same time, the amount of times that I've played or I've talked to NHL players, it happens. It is what it is. Geekie was pissed that he did it, but he also got punished for it. He seems to be someone that Sturm is trying to change a little bit on how he plays the game. I'm not so sure that's the guy to go after. I'm a little curious on that one. But, hey, I'm not a coach in the NHL. Sturm seems to be having zero issues calling out guys and sitting guys and doing all that kind of stuff. He seems to not juggle lines until the third period or very end of a game, which I'm okay with. Montgomery used to do it like way too early in a game or just do it all the time. But a guy that has 9 goals and can score like Morgan Geekie does, maybe lay off Sturm. Like, the team isn't that good, and they still need goals to win hockey games. I understand Sturm's system, and he really wants to play this man-on-man stuff, but the players are having a really hard time with it. And I understand they're not getting enough practice, but at some point, they're 15 games in the season. When is enough? It's enough. Like, figure it out, guys, or move on from it. I don't know what to tell you. And if they can't figure it out, that could be the reason Sturm loses his job. But I don't think he will lose his job. I think Sturm has more job security than I think Don Sweeney does at this point, because Cam will get his bullet to fire Sweeney, and then the organization would probably fire Cam over the summer, which would be interesting because Don Sweeney is the GM of Team Canada for the Olympics. But hey, stranger things have happened. Next on the list, Charlie McAvoy. In 15 games, he's got 0 goals, 11 assists. They've changed the way the offense works for the Boston Bruins. They are more of a perimeter, keeping the puck on the outside, so they're taking less shots from the point. But I also feel McAvoy's shot selection from the point has been suspect at most. It seems that he's rushing his shots, and He's not taking the time to look for lanes, and most of his shots are getting blocked, and it's becoming frustrating to watch. He's also got 24 minutes and penalties. He's playing a little bit more aggressive, but, and I'm not saying Charlie McAvoy is an offensive threat, because he really isn't. He is more of a defensive defenseman than he is an offensive defenseman. Yes, he's a two-way guy, but he has more of defensive upside. And I think his defensive game since Lohrei has come off his line has been better. Him and Zadorov have been a very good pair. I don't mind it at all. But both of them need to stay out of the box to be effective. Get your heads out of your asses. I don't understand. I get it. Zadorov gets tripping the other night against the Islanders, and I don't know, man. I don't know how that's a trip, but Zadorov should know this by now, that he's going to get calls. Keep your hands down and just use your shoulders, Zadorov and McAvoy, and you're not going to get as many calls. You guys are too important on the ice, and in fact, some of the strongest defensive defensemen on the Bruins, and we need you out there. So being in the box as much as you guys are is not going to cut it. And in fact, it hurts your team. So that's my big knock on Charlie McAvoy. Just stay out of the box, man. It's getting a little ridiculous at this point. Next on that list is Elias Lindholm, who's only played 13 games, 4 goals, 5 assists, and 9 points. Elias Lindholm has been great this year. He's looked more confident on the ice. He's been great at the dot. He has helped that power play immensely in the bumper position. He's been very good defensively. And in fact, since he's been gone, I think David Pastrňák's missed him. I think as much as Khusnutdinov has stepped in and done an admirable job, I think Elias Lindholm was meshing more with Pastrňák and Geekie than Khusnutdinov is. And I think Khusnutdinov has played well. I just think Elias Lindholm is more capable of playing that top role, top center, than Khusnutdinov is right now. Khusnutdinov has a lot more he needs to bring into his game and learn. I think his speed is underestimated. Khusnutdinov, he's been great. I'll get to him. Khusnutdinov has played 10 games, 2 goals, 1 assist, 3 points. He has been great. But I really like the play of Elias Lindholm this year. He's looked like the guy they signed. Next on that list is Casey Mittelstadt. 14 games, 4 goals, 5 assists, 9 points. I think he was the very first whipping boy for Marco Sturm, and he has been by far the best to come out of after being the whipping boy of Marco Sturm. It's something lit a fire under him, and he's been great, especially during the last 4 games what they've won. That line of Viktor Arvidsson, Casey Mittelstadt, and Pavel Zacha has been great. Mittelstadt has looked way more comfortable on the wing than he has at center, and that's saying a lot. I was saying at the beginning of the year I didn't think he was fast enough to be a center because the center has to cover a lot more ice. I think Mittelstadt is looking more and more every game comfortable on the wing. He's been going to the net on a regular basis, and he's been not shy from it. I think he's been good at retrieving pucks in the corner. I really like what Casey Mittelstadt's done, and to be fair, it's only raised his trade value. I know I said it at the beginning of the year that the second line was going to be probably going to get traded at the deadline line. I still feel that way. If the Bruins don't make the playoffs, Casey Mittelstadt, Pavel Zacha, and Viktor Arvidsson are going to be number 1 in everybody's hearts to go out the door. People are going to be disappointed. I get it, but the NHL is a business. Players get traded all the time, and these are the type of guys you move. It is what it is. You've got a great team down in Providence playing amazing hockey, everybody knocking on the door, and they've said over and over again pretty much without actually saying it that they're not calling any of these guys up. And I don't blame them. The team is playing way too good down in Providence to call any of these guys up. So that also gives the guy confidence like Mittelstadt and that they're not going to get sat and taken out of the lineup for someone to be called up. So they need to play better. They need to raise their value. Come on, guys, do it for us, because we're going to be getting an injection of some youth at the end of the season, possibly. And the Bruins have 2 first-round picks next year. As long as the Leafs don't finish at the bottom in top 5, if it's a top 5 pick, that is protected. The Bruins don't get it. There's more to it because of the Scott Laughton trade with the Philadelphia Flyers. But as long as it's out of that top 10, the Bruins get that pick. So say the Leafs have the 11th pick overall in the draft next year, that goes to the Boston Bruins next year. So here's the whole breakdown. That pick, top 5 protected, slides to 2027. Then if the pick is in the top 10 or transfers to Philadelphia because of the Laughton trade, slides to unprotected 2028 first round pick. So it's very complicated, although the Leafs get that first round pick this year, but they could either have it in this year, 2027 or 2028. Regardless, the Bruins actually get a Leafs. And this may sound crazy, the Leafs are sliding and they're going to be a worse and worse team. It's almost better if it's the unprotected 2028 first round pick and they get like first overall or something. It could happen. Anything can happen in this day and age in the NHL. Next on the list is Viktor Arvidsson. 15 games, 4 goals, 3 assists, 7 points. The second line, I've said this over and over again, is gelling. The thing about Viktor Arvidsson, I was saying it all season, and he just needed to finally get one in, and then it would just keep coming because the guy has so much speed. And I've actually liked his back check. He's +3. He's actually playing pretty decent defensively for a guy that's just not known for it. But I've really liked how much he's been going to the net. So many times he's just put his stick down, boom, puck hits the stick, and it's going in the net. He hasn't looked bad at there at all. I'm actually kind of confused why he never played for Edmonton in the playoffs because I see nothing wrong with this guy's game right now. It's just getting better and better and better. I hope he gets that 15, 20 goals because I've been saying this all year. I really believe the Boston Bruins got him so that they think they can get a first-round pick for him. They probably won't get a first-round pick this year unless it's a team lower in the standings, but that possibly could give the Bruins 3 first-round picks going into this year's draft. And this year's draft is going to be one of the most deepest drafts we've seen in a really long time. That could be huge for the Boston Bruins. Because you got to remember, we're still in the middle of a retool. If you really think this Bruins team is a contender, let me know in the comments, but I just don't see it. Next on the list is Michael Eyssimont. I really like this kid. 15 games, 3 goals, 4 assists, 7 points, sorry. He's -5, but again, a lot of the Boston Bruins are minus. Like, plus minus on this Bruins team, it's a little bit of an underlier because of how they're having struggles doing the man-on-man coverage, and just watch how bad they are defensively. The amount of times that you're watching a broadcast and you hear, like the other night, Swayman let in that first goal from Duclair's shot from the point. They're showing an angle. He couldn't see a darn thing. But that's normal. He did what David Pastrňák does all the time. He does that spin move and spins around. And it could go in, it could not, it could miss the net. Very hard for Swayman to get over to that one because you don't see it. It's hard to track. I blame Swayman for that Bo Horvat goal. I just think it was brutal. Yes, the giveaway to get to that, but still, like you sometimes you got to make those saves. But there's been a lot of times where these goalies have been left high and dry in front of the net, and I think that's what this plus minus is saying because these players are having a hard time taking the front of the net. They're opening up the slot far too often for other teams. Far too often teams are able to just slide in there and get very good looks in front of the net. And when I break down Swayman's advanced stats, it will tell a different story of, guess what? I know Swayman's goals against average is meh at this point. Korpisalo's is worse. But the Boston Bruins got to shore something up defensively. And that probably could be another reason that Mason Lohrei is just not seeing the ice because when he's on the ice, they're even worse defensively. And then next on the list, Mason Lohrei. 9th on the team in scoring, 11 games, 1 goal, 5 assists, 6 points. His plus minus is 0. All right. We can get mad at Mason Lohrei all we want. Yes, he's bad defensively. I think they just need to find a place for him because I think there's some players that have just played even worse. But I talked enough about Mason Lohrei at the beginning of this video. I shouldn't have to really get into it. I really love his offensive upside. He's just so young. It's when you see a player like that, you're like, just figure it out, team. But the Boston Bruins system, I just don't think it fits. 10th in the team in scoring, the big free agent signing, Tanner Jeannot. 15 games, 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points, -2, 11 penalty minutes. Honestly, I wish his penalty minutes were higher. I don't feel Tanner Jeannot is doing what we all thought, I shouldn't say we all thought, what many in my mentions thought he was bringing to this hockey club. I just don't see it. I think Tanner Jeannot has been okay. I just don't think he's bringing that toughness that we really wanted to. He's been decent in the corners. I think his net front presence is lax sometimes, especially on the defensive side. I would love to see him, just throw someone down. I would love to see Tanner Jeannot get a little nasty. He should be going up to Nikita Zadorov and saying, hey, I got this. And he's not. It was one of the things I said at the beginning of the year, that Tanner Jeannot would have it so Zadorov doesn't have to do all this stupid stuff. And Zadorov is too valuable on the ice. Jeannot is not that valuable on the ice right now. He got most of his goals at the very beginning of the season. He's been okay, not great. He hasn't been bad, though. Like, I honestly, if he was like $4 million, I don't think anybody would care. And even by next year, his contract won't really matter. And maybe the Bruins are looking at it as the length of his contract goes, he's going to be a fourth-line player. I still think he is, but, what do I know? Next on that list is Fraser Minten. Another kid who kind of, got sat or demoted, but he didn't get sat out a game, but he just got lost a little ice time, who I think has played a lot better. And I think rewarding him against the Islanders the other night, having that line of Khusnutdinov, Pastrňák, and Minten, who, got the game-tying goal, that line did, I think they've been okay. I think Fraser Minten has gotten better and better. He's learning, and possibly he's going to be the third-line center for the future for a very long time for the Boston Bruins. I was getting down on him because he had a couple bad games, but he's bounced back so well. He does a lot of things right, and you can see that when Sturm trusts him enough that he's putting him out in many different situations, power play, penalty kill. Fraser Minten was well worth the Brandon Carlo trade. I think the Boston Bruins, in the long run, will win that trade. In fact, I live in the Toronto area. The Toronto fan base has not been a fan of Brandon Carlo at all. And in fact, his goaltender, Stolarz, called him out for pretty much being soft. I've always called Brandon Carlo Bambi. I thought his defensive game made up for it, but he falls a lot, and he's not tough for his size. I think Fraser Minten has been great for the Boston Bruins, and I can't wait to see what this kid does in the future. Next on that list, at number 12, Mark Kastelic. 15 games, 3 goals, 1 assist, 4 points, +3. I really like Mark Kastelic this year. He's done exactly what we all think Tanner Jeannot should do. Kastelic has been very tough in the corners, very tough in front of the net. He's been extremely tough on the forecheck. He's been very good defensively. Mark Kastelic has made the Linus Ullmark trade palatable. Dom was in my Discord, was explaining that the only reason the Bruins didn't get Chychrun is because they didn't get an extension on Linus Ullmark, even though he signed one later. Maybe Ullmark did that purposely. I don't know, man. But at this point, I'm okay with Mark Kastelic. I think he has helped the Boston Bruins. I really like what he brings to the game in the bottom six. And he's a guy that I don't think can come out of the lineup. He plays the game the right way. He's tough. If he needs to drop the gloves, he's going to punch you in the face. And when he does, it's going to hurt. But he picks his spots. He doesn't just, go out of there and just run after guys. He tries to play tough, and he's intimidating when he's on the ice. And I really like what Mark Kastelic brings to this team. Next on that list is Sean Kuraly at number 13. 15 games, 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points. He's +2. He's a journeyman NHLer at this point in his career. He's a vet. I'm sure he brings a lot of good presence to the locker room. I just think he's a guy that you can put in and out of the lineup, and it's not going to be missed as much. I don't know. He's been okay. He hasn't been great, and I think he's lost too much of his speed that later on in the season, or even say the Bruins made the playoffs, I don't think Kuraly plays if the Bruins make the playoffs. He's been really slow. Next on that list, number 14 is Nikita Zadorov. 15 games, 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points, +2. But again, 24 minutes and penalties. Him and McAvoy just stay out of the frickin' box. I'm losing my mind on this. The thing he did with the Islanders fans a couple days ago was absolutely hilarious. They were going into his DMs on Instagram, and he chirped them for being a quiet barn. Good on him. I didn't think it was that bad of a cross-check because I really thought he just, face-washed the Islanders player the other night. But Matthew Schaefer, I think Zadorov has been the best defenseman on the Boston Bruins this year so far. I think McAvoy has played some really good games, and I think so has Hampus Lindholm, but Zadorov has been consistent. And he needs to stay out of the box so that he can help his team because he's been very tough to play against. He's going to get penalties for just being Nikita Zadorov. He's got to figure that out. Maybe keep your hands down a little bit and use your shoulder as much. I don't know what he needs to do to change his style of play. I don't want him to change the way he plays the game. Just change the way he uses his body. Just maybe a little bit. I just think Zadorov has been essential to this Bruins back end. I think he has been a leader back there. I would never make him the captain. Far too many penalty minutes. I don't think the Bruins really, Pastrňák has emerged sometimes to be the captain. I think McAvoy kind of hasn't. And I don't think that Lindholm has played enough games. Zadorov and Pastrňák, to me, feel like the leaders of this Boston Bruins team, but a guy like Zadorov who's in the box that much, he can't be the captain of this team. He just can't. And I don't think the Bruins need a captain right now. It's not changing the way the Bruins play the game. I think we talk about it more, and I don't think the players care at this point. Next on that list is Marat Khusnutdinov. 10 games, 2 goals, 1 assist, 3 points. This is a guy that was sat out for a couple games. And now he's playing top 6 minutes, playing unbelievable. Mike Russo, the reporter out of Minnesota, I guess is a lot like Mark Divver here in Boston, where Divver, for some reason, anybody who's a skilled or fast player, he's going to say that they're not that good, and they always champion the tough guys. Russo was doing that a lot about Khusnutdinov, I guess, when he was in Minnesota. And last night he had to eat some crow about Khusnutdinov. Khusnutdinov got the game-tying goal and got the game winner in the shootout. Khusnutdinov has played very well coming into the lineup and taking some top 6 minutes. His speed, I would probably think it's safe to say that he's the fastest player on the Boston Bruins. I could be wrong. I would love to see how they could figure that out. Between him and Arvidsson, I would say. But I think Khusnutdinov has played very well. I like what he's brought. It's just his size. I feel bad for the guy, but maybe he could be moved over to the wing and he could be very effective there. And I'd hate to talk about size of a player, especially, my dad was 5'5", really 5'4", but at 5'11", center, maybe he just needs to be stronger. He's only 184 pounds. I just think that the Bruins down the middle, Khusnutdinov could get moved out. And I just think he's been too valuable in that top 6 when he's come in. I actually said it last year. I really wish they would have gave him a top 6 role because I think that he can do something with it. No team has ever given him one. Minnesota never gave him one. Even the Bruins, when they brought him in, I think they played him like 1 or 2 games, and then they threw him down in that bottom 6. I think he has been very good in the top 6 role, and he's looked great out there. And he's been playing a two-way game. He can't hurt you when he's on the ice. Khusnutdinov, to me, has been a surprise that I've loved to see every minute of. Next on that list, Henry Jokiharju. 15 games, 3 assists. He's just meh. He doesn't, excite me. He's okay. He's better than Andrew Peeke. I don't know if that's saying much, but that's what frustrates me, seeing Lohrei get sat out so many games for his defensive lapse. When you have guys like Peeke and Jokiharju that I'm just like, whatever at this point. Like, what are they bringing to the game? I guess the Bruins are just really hoping this guy can, bring some value and maybe they can trade him at the trade deadline. But he's made some pizzas up the middle, and he's just, it's like he's lost a step and people are able to beat him on the outside a little bit too much. He's not pinching, which is great because he's realizing how slow he is, but I don't know. I haven't really liked his game. He's been okay. That's all I'm going to say. It's just been okay. Then we got Jordan Harris. He only played 5 games. I know everybody loves this guy, but it was only 5 games, and I wasn't like, he was just better than what they had. And that's not saying much. The Bruins defense hasn't been that great. It's been their biggest weak point of this hockey club is their defense. But that's just my opinion on it. And then we got Hampus Lindholm, 7 games. He's only got 2 assists, but we know that he was playing injured. The Bruins play better when he's in the lineup. Plain simple. His two-way game is some of the best on the Boston Bruins. I think just something looks off. I know he came back, but it still looks off. And I'm actually very worried because he's got way too much left on his deal. And it would be very hard for the Boston Bruins to move a guy like him. And they're better with him in the lineup, but at the same time, he's till 2029-30. It's $6.5 million. That's a tough one. He needs to play better. I'm gonna be honest. For a guy like him, who is a top 4 defenseman, top pair defenseman for that matter, he needs to be better. I need to see him chip in some offensively. I know he's more defensive than offensive, but I need to see a little bit from him. I think he's just getting back into the game. The team's winning, so I can't really complain. And he's played better than majority of the defensemen. Again, I said Zadorov has been their best defenseman, and I stand by that. Andrew Peeke, 15 games, 2 assists, -3. I think he's been dreadful. He cannot figure out the man-on-man coverage. He's the guy. Like, even if you don't put Lohrei back in, just take Peeke out of the lineup. The guy needs to just watch a game. He has been dreadful when he's on the ice. I think he's added absolutely nothing. The guy goes to the World Championship last year for Team USA and then all of a sudden doesn't, get inspired to play better hockey. He doesn't suck, but he's been one of their Bruins' worst defensemen, I find, this year, because his role is to be a defensive defenseman, and he ain't cutting it. You know what? He is the king of he's the bullfighter on this team. He is the king of just letting everybody just walk in and shoot on these goalies. The amount of high danger chances the Bruins are giving up are unbelievable. And I bet you, if you look at the advanced stats, because I'm just talking out of the head, Andrew Peeke is right up there. Next on the list, Johnny Beecher, 5 games, 1 goal. Beecher's been whatever this year. He is your extra forward. It was very interesting when he was the guy that got put into the lineup and they didn't bring anybody up from Providence. That told me right away they don't want to mess with what's going on in Providence, and it's just what they're going to do. But Beecher, I think his time with the Boston Bruins is limited. And what's he got? He's got 1 year left. He's an RFA next year. Bruins still hold his rights. I don't know. I think the Bruins move him, to be totally honest. I don't think his time in Boston is got much left. He hasn't panned out. And then again, when the Bruins drafted him, they literally said they drafted him to be a bottom 6 forward and that he was a reach. So that's not on Johnny Beecher. That's on the Bruins. Then we got Jeffrey Vial, 3 games. There are way better players in Providence that could jump into the lineup. It's not that I don't like this guy. I just don't think what he brings we even need anymore. When you have a guy like Kastelic, when you have a guy like you just paid so much money in Tanner Jeannot, and then you keep putting a guy like Jeffrey Vial, that's a Mark Divver player. Vial, yeah, I think he's just an AHL player. I think he is a good hockey player. I just don't think he's NHL. That's all. That's all. And then we got Michael Callahan. He played 3 games. There's not much to say about that. And then Jonathan Aspirot. Now, he's played 4 games. He's just been good defensively, and that's okay. He's actually been very good with the man-on-man coverage. I'm not saying he's a future, Boston Bruins stalwart defenseman, but he's played better than Andrew Peeke. In fact, I would sit Peeke to put Lohrei back in, or Jokiharju. I wouldn't sit Aspirot. I think Aspirot has played decent enough to stay in the lineup. He doesn't hurt you when he's on the ice, and he helps you defensively. I'm okay with stuff like that. I need to see more games from him, but right now, I think that would send a bigger message. For some reason, he's been really going after Sturm, has been going after the offensive players. Maybe go after the other guys. I don't know. Just maybe, because the Bruins' problem this year has been the defensive system, because they've been terrible at it. Now we get into the goalies. Jeremy Swayman. 9 games played, 5 wins, 4 losses, a .310 goals against average, and an .897 save percentage, 273 shots against, 245 saves, and 28 goals against. But there's more to it. What do the underlining numbers say about Jeremy Swayman? His goals saved above expected puts him 19th in the NHL. That puts him ahead. That puts him right there with Vasilevsky, Shesterkin, Darcy Kemper, Jake Ottender. It puts him near the top of the NHL. Even though he's 19th, it's still, the numbers are very close to the other players there. His expected goals against, okay? Another very good outliner to tell you how a goalie's doing. He's 7th in the NHL for goaltenders. The only goalies ahead of him, Darcy Kemper, Connor Hellebuck, Alex Leon, Philip Gustafsson, Lucas Dostal, and UC Saros. He is at a 31.46. It goes to show you that he's making a lot of high danger saves. The Boston Bruins are giving up ridiculous amounts of shots on their goalies in the slot. It's becoming ridiculous at this point. I'm not saying Swayman is living up to his contract because I just don't want to hear about it in the chat. And I've said this before. I hope the Bruins eventually just trade him so we don't have to talk about him anymore. But he hasn't played that bad at all. He's playing better than he did last year. He really hasn't been as bad as everybody seems. I think people really need to finally realize the Boston Bruins defensively are terrible. And if Jeremy Swayman and Korpisalo, for that matter, were on any other team that played sound defensive, they would look great. If Jeremy Swayman was on the Colorado Avalanche, he would be talked about as one of the best goalies in the NHL. These are just facts. Unfortunately, our boy Joonas Korpisalo, numbers aren't that great. He's 35th in goals against expected. And then goals saved above expected, I got to go really far down the list, unfortunately. Let's keep going. I'm just going to keep rolling down that list. He's 58th. He hasn't been that good. But again, 6 games, 3 wins, 3 losses. He's got a .349 goals against average and an .882 save percentage. 178 shots against, 157 saves, 21 goals against. He's very good in the third period. I would love to see the stats of him alone in the third period. For some reason, he is having a hard time with his rebound control and his starts, but he is very being good in the third period, and he's helped his team win games. And I would say the same about Jamie Swayman, except I think Swayman's issue isn't rebound control. He's having a hard time on the short side and catching some reads. Maybe his defenseman need to start talking to him, but I don't think goaltending is an issue. I don't think it's an issue for the Boston Bruins. I truly don't. I think the Boston Bruins' issue is their defensive structure. We all thought this was going to be 3-1, 2-1 hockey games, and that's not what we're seeing from this Boston Bruins team. And I think for this Boston Bruins team to be successful, that's what we need to see, especially in man-on-man coverage. But I've gone through. It's only been 15 games. I still stand with my original prediction that the Boston Bruins don't make the playoffs, but I want to hear from you. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me whatever you want to do. I want to hear from you. What do you think of the first 15 games from the Boston Bruins? Let me know in the comments. And as always, thank you for watching all these videos. I truly, truly, truly greatly appreciate it. I really do. I've been going through a lot lately. I've had a lot going on, work, life. It's just, I've had a really hard time, but coming in these comments and talking to all of you, it's made it worth it. And I truly appreciate it. So please leave me a like. Please leave me a subscribe. I'll see you next time.